Ever wish you could go back and give your younger self a few career tips, like some insider knowledge that could have really helped them out?
Oh, absolutely. I think we all have those moments looking back thinking, if I only knew then what I know now.
Oh, exactly. Well, on this deep dive, we are tapping into those reflections. We're diving into a conversation with some seriously experienced folks in the forestry and working landscape world and getting a glimpse of the wisdom they would share with their younger selves.
These are the kind of hard-won insights that come from years in the field, facing challenges, making decisions, and, really learning through experience. It's like getting a sneak peek at the playbook of success in this industry directly from those who have walked the path.
Exactly. And this gem of a conversation actually comes from the Forest Business School's 6-month Essentials program. This program is designed for those mid-career folks, the small business owners, the key employees, anyone in forestry and working landscapes who's looking to level up their skills.
And we had a great mix of people in this particular group. We had a couple of cut-to-length loggers, a logging crew leader, a whole tree harvesting logger, a hardwood lumber salesperson.
Wow. Talk about a range of perspectives.
Oh, yeah. And we also had an operations manager from a timberland investment company and a forester from a public agency. So, a real cross-section of the industry.
I'm already hooked. So tell me, how did this whole advice to your younger self thing even come up?
Well, they were in a session led by Dr. Steve Bick, who's a real veteran in forestry education. And he got them reflecting on what they'd tell their younger selves, knowing what they know now. It was such a rich conversation, and our goal here is to pull out the most impactful nuggets of advice and share them directly with our
I
listeners.
love that. It's like a distillation of years of experience, a shortcut to valuable lessons learned in the forestry business.
Exactly. And to keep it super focused, we're going to zero in on the content and themes of this advice. No fluff, just the good stuff.
Let's do it. What's the first piece of wisdom that jumped out?
Well, one participant looked all the way back to when they were just 13. Their advice centered on, believe it or not, finances. They emphasized saving money over spending it impulsively. Like even resisting the allure of posters and lava lamps, things that might seem essential at that age.
Oh, I totally get that. The teenage urge to spend on the latest trend is real. But to be thinking about saving at 13, that's impressive. Did they have anything more specific to say about that?
The truly surprising part was their suggestion to start a retirement account, even at that young age.
Whoa, retirement at 13? That seems a bit, I don't know, premature.
It might sound counterintuitive, right? At that age, retirement feels like a lifetime away. But their point was about establishing good financial habits from the get-go. The earlier you start, the more time your savings have to grow.
It's that whole compound interest thing, right? Like even small amounts can snowball over time. It's a powerful concept that, frankly, more young people should grasp.
Absolutely. And it highlights a broader theme of delaying gratification, which is so crucial for long-term success, not just financially, but in many aspects of life.
Makes sense. So what other nuggets of wisdom did these folks share?
Well, fast forwarding a couple of years, another participant reflected on their experience at 15, focusing on the dynamics of social and professional interactions, their advice. Realize that a lot of people, even adults, project an image of certainty that they might not actually feel.
Oh, that's so true. Especially as a teenager, it's easy to assume that everyone else has it figured out. It can be really intimidating.
Exactly. So their message was, don't let that perceived certainty hold you back. Make your own thing, do it your own way, and own whatever comes of it, good or bad. It's about embracing your individuality and taking responsibility for your actions.
I love that. It's about building confidence through experience, learning from mistakes, and not being afraid to chart your own course. Did any of them share specific examples of how they developed that confidence?
One participant shared a funny story about unexpectedly becoming the resident expert on single-action revolvers in their English class. It just so happened they had some knowledge about guns, and it gave them a little boost of confidence to realize they could contribute in an unexpected way.
That's a great anecdote. It shows that expertise can come from anywhere and sometimes surprises us. You don't need to have it all figured out to be confident in your abilities.
Now, this conversation about forging your own path naturally led to a discussion about the dynamics within the forestry sector itself. One participant, a licensed forester who also has experience logging, noted a potential perception of a hierarchy between the two roles. They wondered if their understanding of both sides of the industry might be intimidating to some.
Hmm, that's an interesting observation. Did others share their thoughts on that?
Absolutely. A hardwood lumber salesperson emphasized that both roles are critical. Loggers are essential for harvesting timber, and foresters play a crucial role in managing the forests for various objectives.
So it's not about one being superior to the other, but rather a recognition of their interdependence.
Exactly. Collaboration is key. There was also some really good advice specifically for foresters, encouraging them to actively tap into the practical knowledge of loggers.
That makes sense. Loggers have on-the-ground experience that can be incredibly valuable. Did anyone express frustrations about miscommunications or misunderstandings between these roles?
There are definitely some frustrations voiced about situations where loggers made assumptions without fully understanding the broader context of a timber sale. Like maybe they weren't aware of the landowner's specific objectives or the long-term management plan for the property.
Ah, so it's about ensuring that everyone is on the same page, communicating clearly, and respecting each other's expertise.
Precisely. And to offer another perspective, one logger in the group shared that they've had really positive experiences working with foresters who genuinely value their input. So it's not a universal divide, but rather a reminder of the importance of open communication and mutual respect.
Okay, so we've talked about early financial habits and navigating the dynamics of different roles in the industry. What other advice did these experienced folks have up their sleeves?
Well, shifting gears a bit, the conversation turned to advice for those around 18 years old. The topic. Considering a gap year, perhaps for travel or other experiences, before diving headfirst into college.
Gap years. That's a hot topic these days.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious to hear what these seasoned professionals thought.
There were some differing viewpoints, which I think reflects the broader conversation around gap years. Some participants wish they had taken that opportunity, feeling it could have provided more clarity about their interests and career paths. They saw it as a chance for personal growth and exploration.
Makes sense. Taking time to figure things out can be valuable, especially before committing to a specific academic path.
Right. But others expressed reservations, perhaps thinking back to when their own kids were that age. There's that worry about delaying education and potentially losing momentum.
I can see both sides. Maybe depends on how structured the gap year is, having a clear plan versus just taking time off without direction.
I think that's a key factor. The intention behind the gap year definitely matters. Now, moving on to advice for those in the 18 to 25 age range, there is a strong emphasis on a topic we touched on earlier: finances. Specifically, the absolute necessity of good bookkeeping and understanding your numbers.
Finances again. Sounds like this is a theme we need to pay attention to.
It was a recurring theme, and the advice was quite direct. Hire an accountant.
Wow, straight to the point. Did anyone share why they felt so strongly about this?
Many of them had learned the hard way, realizing that trying to handle their own finances, both business and personal, had led to unnecessary stress and potentially costly mistakes.
I can relate to that. Sometimes it's just worth it to bring in a professional who really knows their stuff.
Absolutely. And this advice wasn't just for business owners, it applies to everyone. Understanding your personal finances, budgeting, saving, investing, it's all critical for long-term financial well-being.
So it's about having a clear picture of your overall financial health, both personally and professionally. Makes a lot of sense.
Now, building on this financial theme, there was another piece of advice that came up repeatedly. Save for retirement and start early, like around age 20. Aim to save 10% of your income.
Okay, starting early, we're hearing that loud and clear. But why the big emphasis on it?
The participants who had started saving early emphasized the incredible power of compounding over decades. They were already seeing the benefits, while those who started later expressed regret for not beginning sooner. It really drove home the point that time is your biggest asset when it comes to building wealth.
I'm starting to wish I had heard this advice years ago. Did anyone share specific examples of how they've approached retirement savings?
One participant even mentions setting up Roth IRAs for their young children just to illustrate the potential impact of decades of early contributions. That's long-term thinking in action.
Wow, that's really impressive. It's never too early to start planning for the future, even if retirement seems ages away.
No. Shifting to advice given around the age of 25, a key theme that emerged was the importance of seeking guidance and mentorship.
Mentorship. That's interesting. Tell me more.
The advice was, don't be afraid to approach people you admire and respect, those who have experience and expertise you can learn from. Ask for their advice, their insights, their perspective.
I think a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, hesitate to do that. They might feel like they're bothering people or admitting weakness?
That's understandable, but the participants emphasize that most people are actually flattered to be asked for their advice. It's a sign of respect and a recognition of their experience.
It's about recognizing that you don't have to figure everything out on your own. There's a wealth of knowledge out there if you're willing to ask for it.
Exactly. One logger shared how much they relied on the advice of a more experienced neighbor in the early years of their career. That mentorship was invaluable to their success.
It's a great reminder that seeking guidance is a sign of strength, not weakness. We all need help along the way.
Now, here's where things get a bit interesting. Around that same age of 25, another piece of advice came up that might seem contradictory. Take more financial risks when you're younger.
Wait, take more risks. But we were just talking about the importance of saving and financial stability.
It might seem counterintuitive, but it's about recognizing that when you're younger, you generally have less to lose and more time to recover from setbacks.
So it's a calculated risk,
Yeah.
not reckless abandon.
Exactly. One participant shared a story about regretting passing up an opportunity to buy adjacent land early in their career because they thought they couldn't afford it. Looking back, they realized they missed out on a great investment because they were too risk-averse.
That's a powerful example of how fear can hold us back from opportunities. Did anyone else share their experiences with taking risks?
A logger wished they had taken on more financial risk earlier when it came to buying equipment. Their observation was, the machines always made their payments. It suggests that strategic investments can pay off, even if they initially involve some financial risk.
I'm seeing a theme here. It's about having the confidence to make bold moves,
Yeah.
especially when you have time on your side to adjust course if needed.
And it ties back to that belief in your own future success. If you have confidence in your abilities, you're more likely to be comfortable taking calculated risks.
Makes sense. So what other advice did they have for those in their mid-20s?
This one might not be a surprise. Don't be afraid to start your business.
The entrepreneurial spirit. Seems like a common aspiration in this industry.
It definitely came up a few times. One participant shared that they had thought about starting their own business for years, but hesitated due to self-doubt. Eventually, they took the leap and launched their logging business at age 27.
And how do they feel about it now?
They're so glad they did it. It just goes to show that sometimes the biggest obstacle is overcoming our own fear and taking that first step.
So it's about pushing past the fear of the unknown and having the courage to pursue your dreams.
Exactly. Now, moving into the late 20s, around age 27, another piece of advice emerged that speaks to the importance of continuous learning. Invest time in researching different harvesting systems.
Why the focus on harvesting systems specifically?
This advice came from someone who works in the Northeast, where the terrain and logging conditions can be quite challenging. They emphasize the importance of understanding the nuances of different systems to ensure efficient and sustainable operations.
So it's about staying up to date on the latest technology and best practices in harvesting.
Precisely. It's about constantly seeking ways to improve your methods and adapt to changing conditions. Now, as these professionals reflected on reaching their 30s, the advice shifted a bit towards the practical realities of business and client management. One key takeaway was, don't assume clients are willing to pay for the best quality. You need to understand their price expectations.
That's an interesting point. I'd imagine quality is always in demand.
Well, a logger explained that regardless of how much they invest in top-of-the-line equipment or how meticulously they work, the rates they can charge are often dictated by the market and the perceived value of the logs delivered.
So it's not always about showcasing the highest quality, but rather meeting the client's specific needs and budget.
Exactly. And it raised an interesting discussion about the value proposition of a logging operation. Is it about maximizing the volume of timber extracted, or is it about the quality of the work left behind in the forest?
So it's about finding that balance between economic viability and environmental sustainability.
Precisely. And there were differing opinions on whether landowners are willing to pay a premium for a logger who prioritizes the long-term health of the forest. Some felt that landowners who engage foresters are more likely to value that approach, while others thought factors like cost and convenience often play a bigger role in hiring decisions.
It's a complex issue with a lot of factors at play.
Absolutely. And it highlights the need for clear communication and a shared understanding of priorities between the logger, the forester, and the landowner.
So open dialogue and collaboration are key.
Now, another piece of advice that resonated with those in their 30s was, you can't just wait for opportunities to come to you, you have to actively pursue them.
Oh, I love that. It's about taking initiative and creating your own luck.
Exactly. The creation of the Forest Business School itself was cited as an example of this. It came about because someone saw a need and took action to fill it, rather than waiting for someone else to do it.
That's inspiring. So it's about being proactive, building relationships, and making things happen.
And a hardwood lumber salesperson emphasized the importance of this in sales. You can't just sit back and wait for customers to come knocking. You have to go out and find them.
It's about hustling and putting yourself out there.
Exactly. And this led to another piece of advice that might seem a little controversial.
Mm.
Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it.
That's an interesting one. I'm curious to hear how that played out in the conversation.
There was definitely some healthy skepticism about the fake it part, especially in a field like logging where practical skills are paramount. But the broader message was about having the confidence to take on challenges even if you don't feel 100% ready.
So it's not about pretending to have skills you don't, but rather having the courage to step outside your comfort zone and learn as you go.
Exactly. And it ties back to that earlier advice about seeking guidance and mentorship. It's okay to ask for help, to admit you don't know everything.
So it's about balancing confidence with humility.
Now, the last piece of advice we'll touch on is one that I think resonates with everyone, regardless of age or industry. Find ways to reduce your workload and achieve a better work-life balance.
The elusive work-life balance. It's something we all strive for.
Especially in physically demanding fields like forestry, it can be a real challenge. But the advice was to prioritize efficiency, invest in tools and equipment that make your work easier, and be strategic about how you manage your time.
Any specific examples of how people have achieved this?
One participant shared that a period of enforced time off due to an injury actually led them to reevaluate their work processes and become more efficient. Sometimes stepping away can give you a fresh perspective.
That's an interesting takeaway. It's like the saying, work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of finding ways to work sustainably, both for your physical health and your overall well-being.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways that our listeners should really remember?
Well, we heard a lot of great advice from these experienced professionals, but I think the most important themes were the power of early financial planning, the value of continuous learning and mentorship, the need for calculated risk-taking, and the constant pursuit of a healthy work-life balance.
These are all valuable insights, especially for those who are earlier in their careers or considering joining the forestry and working landscape sector.
And it's important to remember that these insights come directly from people who have walked the walk, faced challenges, made mistakes, and ultimately achieved success in this field.
It's a reminder that we can all learn from each other's experiences. The Forest Business School is all about creating those opportunities for learning and growth.
And with that in mind, I'd like to leave our listeners with a final thought. As you navigate your own career journey, consider how these principles of financial prudence, continuous learning, calculated risk-taking, and work-life balance might shape your approach and contribute to your long-term success and fulfillment. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the collective wisdom of those who have paved the way in the forestry and working landscape industry.
We hope you found these insights as valuable as we did. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for that elusive work-life balance.
And don't forget to save for retirement.
Right. Start now, even if you're only 13.
You'll thank yourself later.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Hey, this is Steve Bick with the Forest Business School. Thanks for listening to the FBS podcast, and I hope you will subscribe. The truth is, these deep dives barely scratch the surface of some of the topics we cover in the Forest Business School programs, and the podcast is a way of reaching a wider audience. Check out my website at vtfbs.com for more information. Reach out if you want to talk about one of the FBS programs or have custom training or project needs that you'd like to discuss. Again, thanks for listening to the FBS podcast.